Okay, good evening, everyone. This is Abdulrahman Joud from the ICF Saudi chapter. I'm very happy to have all of you and really warm welcome to all our esteemed attendees from anywhere in the world, from Saudi Arabia, from our esteemed members in the Saudi chapter. We're delighted to have you with us at the 2025 International Coaching Week. And we believe this year is held under a very interesting theme, Coaching Horizons 2025, Legacy, Innovation, and Impact. Okay. So at the internet, let me just start introducing a little bit about our chapter vision and mission at the International Coaching Federation. Our basically vision is to be the leading catalyst for excellence in coaching and personal development in Saudi Arabia, empowering individuals and organizations to realize their full potential and achieve sustainable growth through the power of coaching. Just a minute. And our mission is to advance the art and science and practice of professional coaching in Saudi Arabia by providing high quality education, fostering a strong community of skilled coaches, promoting ethical standards, and creating opportunities for growth and collaboration. We're delighted to supporting coaches in delivering transformative and impactful coaching experience for individuals and organizations across the kingdom. So basically, this is the start of our amazing event tonight. On behalf of the board of directors of the ICF Saudi chapter, we're truly honored and pleased by your presence and engagement. The board works in the Saudi chapter continuously to provide top-tier learning resources and professional support for its members. And alhamdulillah, over the past this year, we've done amazing activities and initiatives with all of our great members in the Saudi chapter. And we continually working with every one of you to keep the board and keep our members enlightened with and advance their skills and knowledge and coaching practice. Okay, we've got in our board the President Abdul Sattar, and also Coach 𝗙𝗰𝗶𝗶𝗁 as a Vice President, Coach Lina as Executive Secretary, and Coach Rasha as a membership director, and Dr. Nada as Coach Nada, Marketing and Communications Director. Myself, Abdulrahman, Events and Community Directors, Coach Walid as a Treasurer, and Coach 𝗦𝗽𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗁, Partnerships and Innovation Director, and Coach Afaf, the Knowledge and Credentials Directors. All those amazing board members in the Saudi chapter are working day and night to really help and support and empower you as coaches in our chapter, and to empower and help you really unleash your potentials in the coaching practice, and definitely for the other colleagues also joining us tonight in this amazing event, which basically going to joining one of amazing coaches. We invite him today to enlighten us, to share with us a very interesting topic, a very interesting, let's say, history and stories. And he's coming from an executive background as well, working with an amazing people. But before jumping to our guest today, I just wanted to highlight very top level house rules. So basically, just make sure your microphone muted all the time. We wanted really to focus in the session, really want you to enjoy and get the best out of today's session. So please please, if you got any questions in the chat, just leave it in the chat box. To receive continuing education hour certifications, make sure your name is correctly written in the chat in the Zoom, and make sure that you remain in the session until the end. And there are a couple of activities we're going to run. We want to make sure, if you want to get the certificate, to get the certificate with the right name. So make sure that your name is written correctly. All right. So here we go. Introducing our speaker for today's session. We've got an amazing coach, an amazing catalyst, and an amazing speaker, an international coach, Dr. Corrie 𝗙𝗶𝗶𝗿. And he is bringing a very interesting topic and very interesting title for our today's session. And Dr. Corrie is coming from a rich background, working with executives as also a chief executive coach, T1, and he's coming with a background where sharing and sharing experience from business, working with executives in different organizations in the Middle East and worldwide. And today he's bringing very, very interesting experience, sharing his success stories, those stories that he already built up throughout his experience working with many clients. Won't take much introducing. I would love to stay long, but I would love to leave Dr. Corrie to also start his presentation, also introducing himself. Dr. Corrie?
Hi, I'm here. Yes, it's so exciting to be with you. Thank you so much. I'm really grateful for this opportunity, and I'm so much looking forward to this session. This is going to be amazing. I'm so glad you're here. Okay.
Yep.
Should I start? You ready?
Yep, we're ready.
Perfect.
Yes, coach.
Awesome. So you have my screen there?
Yeah. All right. You've got the screen, I believe, coach.
Got it? Perfect.
Yes, it's sharing.
Excellent. All right. Good. Well, hi. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited because we're going to talk about traditional versus Olympic level coaching. And I'm glad we're talking about coaching horizons, because this is like the next level. This is the absolute highest level of human performance. And I want you to think about the coaching metaphor in terms of Olympic coaching. Every Olympic athlete has a coach, right? There's no such thing as an Olympic athlete that doesn't have an Olympic coach. All 10,500 athletes at the recent Olympics all had coaches, okay? And that's the same at the top of human performance in every domain. The top violin players in the world all have coaches. The top horse riders in the world all have coaches. The top dancers and architects and surgeons, and yes, the majority of the CEOs and CXOs in the Fortune 500 and the FTSE 100 also have coaches. Now, our topic of discussion tonight is, what is the difference between coaching in business and coaching at the Olympic business level? That's what I want you to pay attention to, because when we're looking at our corporate executives, we want to think of them as the Olympians of business, right? They are competing at the highest level in these massive economic games that have incredible consequences, right? If an Olympic athlete has a bad day, what happens? They miss the medal. There's a little bit of disappointment, maybe, lose out on some national pride. But if a CEO of a major organization has a bad day, 1,000 families can lose their primary source of income. Or you wipe $10 million off of the bottom line, or the stock price falls 4%, and then 150,000 investors have to carry that cost. So Olympic performance in the business world means we're paying attention to how to help executives perform at their highest level in their executive role. That is the definition of executive coaching. And so that's what we're looking at, is the highest level of performance. This cascades all the way down through the organization, but the tools that I'm going to share with you, we're going to talk about practical tools. I'm going to share with you the insights that I've got doing executive coaching over the last 15 years. And this is really going to help you to add incredible value as a coach for all of those organizations that you're working with. So I hope that you're as excited as I am. All right. Please feel free to pop your questions into the chat. I'll pause from time to time
Sure.
to see. And then Abdulrahman, if you can moderate those questions and highlight the really good ones for me, that would be
Definitely.
great. Good?
Definitely.
Perfect. All right. This is why this matters. Okay. 96% of CXOs said that they would do executive coaching. Again, 86% of organizations that have tried it say that it has a positive ROI, which is a great stat for you to know as a coach. 788% is what we now think is the established average ROI of executive coaching. And the executive coaching that I do in Dubai across a number of organizations has averaged out at between 53x and 901x per year on my style of coaching. So I'm hoping that the value that I bring to you tonight is I'm going to give you some of my coolest tips and tricks so that you can add the same kind of value. CXOs operate where potential lives and dies. Like I said, they have a huge risk profile in terms of the decisions that they make and the consequences of those decisions. So we'll talk a little bit about that and how we can add value in that domain as well. Okay. And the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is setting the bar on this, not just on executive level leadership, but on executive level coaching. Like if you want your highest level people to perform at their highest level and at the global level of competitiveness, then they're going to need some really great coaches next to them. And I'm hoping that's going to be you. All right, so that's why this matters. But first, I want to get your engagement. We're going to go straight to Menti, and I'm going to ask you the first of 5 questions that you're going to interact with tonight. I'd like you to take out your phone. You can use the QR code. If you have a Menti app on your phone, you can use the code 270-15271. It's written there on the slide. And I'd like you to plug that code in or do the QR code. And I'm just going to get you to answer the first question. Which do you think produces the best executive level outcomes? A, an ICF PCC level coach. B, a psychologist with no coaching credential. C, a former Fortune 500 CEO with a coaching track record. Or D, a hybrid of credential and C-suite experience. Go ahead and pop your answer into Menti, and then I'd
Okay.
love to see the answers from that.
Okay.
Abdulrahman, do you have a way of seeing that?
Yeah, I think I'll share my screen because the answers will pop up here. Yeah,
All right, so I should stop sharing?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, it's yours.
I'll
Go
share
ahead.
it from the end. Yep.
Perfect.
So the first question, what do you think produces the best executive level outcomes? All right.
We've only got 3 responses so far, so I'm waiting for the rest of you. We've got 31 people in the room.
Okay.
I'm going to wait till at least half respond. So make sure to take out your phone.
Let me try to add do everybody have got the link, or let me share the link for
For the Menti, you can put that in the chat, the master chat.
Yeah, I've done it now.
Okay, perfect. So click on the link in the chat, and that'll take you to the app, and there you'll find the first question. Which do you think produces the best executive level outcomes? All right, wow, we've got most people are saying number 4, hybrid of credential and C-suite experience. So super interesting, actually. Really interesting. All of these are opinion-based, right? There's not a right or wrong. There is some really good research on this, but because we're on the horizon of executive coaching and we're on the horizon of coaching in general, there's not a lot of great research about what's the most effective credential or the most effective preparation for a coach when they're going to coach somebody in the Fortune 500. So this is great, really great.
Great. All right, shall we move on?
Yeah, this is good. Okay, so it seems everybody agrees that we've got a hybrid of coaching experience plus plus a credential, a coaching credential of some kind. And I would generally agree with you. I think a credential is important because you need to learn the coaching skills, but C-suite experience is also kind of important because there might be in-role or industry experience that will benefit you when you're trying to help your C-suite executive to perform at their natural best. The challenge with that is knowledge half-life. So for those of you who don't know what knowledge half-life is, it's the amount of time it takes for the knowledge that you have today to become worth half of what it was when you learned it. Okay, so knowledge half-life means that your knowledge, what you know today, is going to become worth about half as much after a certain amount of time, and then half as much again after a certain amount of time. And in different disciplines, knowledge half-life has a different level of age. So in business, it's about 5 years. In technology, especially fintech, it's about 2 years. So executive level experience, even if you're a CEO who's worked in the industry, your executive level experience in that industry is going to degrade at about half, 50% every 5 years. So if you've been, as a coach, if you've been out of your CEO role for 7.5 years, your experience isn't anymore really that valuable because the environment has changed, the role requirements have changed, and the nature of the game has changed. And that means your coaching experience goes up in value over time, and your previous in-role or industrial experience goes down in value over time, which is really cool because it means you can become an expert in coaching, which is awesome. Because if we look at the Olympic athletes who are actually the most winning Olympic athletes, their coaches don't have a lot of experience in the game. Take, for example, Michael Phelps, who is the most decorated Olympic athlete in all of human history. He has 39 world records, 28 Olympic medals, 23 of which are gold. And his coach, Bob Bowman, was a competitive swimmer in 1984 and 1985 for about 18 months. Okay, but by the time he got to the first Olympic Games in 2000, and Bob Bowman coached Michael Phelps through 5 Olympic Games, but his experience in competitive swimming was worth nothing by the time he got there. Okay, so he liked the sport of swimming, and he was an amazing tactician and methodologist, and that's how they ended up winning all of those incredible medals and those incredible accolades, is because the coach athlete experience was so strong, not because the coach's experience in swimming was really strong. So it's really important for us to remember that. So let's move to our flight plan for today. I'm going to talk about 7 terrains. We're going to give you a peek at the 7 terrains that I'm looking at in terms of high performance coaching. And we're going to do 5 live polls like the one we just did. I'll give you some actionable questions we can discuss, and then I'm going to give you some free resources and a Q&A at the end. All right. When you see this a QR code at the top right-hand side, that's just a contact form. So if you would like to contact me, all it is a simple capture form. If you have any questions for me, you want to follow up with me, that's entirely fine. I'm going to be feeding all of this back to Abdulrahman anyway. So feel free to reach out to me through ICF or through that QR code when you see it. Good. Now, the coach's job is to close the gap between potential and performance. You might be born talented enough to break a world record in your industry or in your craft, but guaranteed, without good coaching, you will never find out. All right, so terrain number 1 for Olympic level business coaching is coaching for peak pressure performance. Just think about what high stress, high anxiety, high risk decisions these executives are making every day. Now, if you look at an Olympic athlete, they are being coached 90% of the time so that they can perform at the highest level 10% of the time, maybe, okay? But for an executive, it's entirely the opposite. They are on the field of competition 90% of the time, and they are being coached, if at all, maybe 10% of the time, which makes coaching for performance at least 9 orders of magnitude more important, more critical for an executive than it is for an Olympic athlete. And yet, still, there's a lot of boards of directors that think of it as an expense. There's a lot of executives that think of it as therapy, and you and I both know coaching is not therapy. If you're broken and you need to be fixed, yeah, go get a therapist. That is not our job. Our job is to take talented people and turn them into Olympians. And so we need to be looking for where their pressures come from. And there's these four that I've identified here. I'm just going to introduce them to you quickly. The Pygmalion versus Golem expectations, public-private identity, blur, the decision complexity and velocity, and then the protection paradox, the perfection paradox. So first of all, really quickly, Pygmalion and Golem expectations. These are the external expectations of the world. So a lot of our highest performing business leaders are in the public eye. Okay, people are watching. And the Pygmalion effect is when somebody's external voice helps them to behave better. And then the Golem effect is when somebody's external voice causes them to behave worse. And so this can happen when they make a bad decision, or there's a rumor about them, or something goes wrong and it's in the public eye. And then the Golem effect is the media pressure that's on these leaders causes them to stress out and they have anxiety. And maybe they don't show the anxiety publicly, but privately they've got imposter syndrome and insecurity that they can't talk about. And that causes them to be insecure and hold back in their decision making. And so they're less confident in the decisions that they're making. And so they make poorer decisions. And so what happens is the poor expectations of the outside world lead to poorer decisions by the leader, and which lead to poorer expectations of the outside world. And so that's the Golem effect. The good news is that whether you're on the spectrum, the psychology spectrum of behavioral determinism or classical conditioning, both of these ends of the spectrum agree that the most effective form of change in any human psychology is an outside voice. So yeah, the public perception matters, but so does the opinion of the coach. And it's the coach next to the athlete saying, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it. Of course, the coach doesn't know if the athlete can do it. That is the very definition of a world record. A world record, by definition, is something that nobody knows is possible. Okay? So if you, as a coach, have that Pygmalion effect or that Pygmalion influence on your leaders, your executives, your clients, and you're saying, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it, chances are better that they will do it. They'll be able to do it because they'll believe in themselves. And that sense of self-efficacy goes up significantly with the external voice. And that's you. The second one is the public-private identity blur. And it becomes really, really hard for leaders that are in publicly traded organizations or in public sector organizations where they feel like they themselves are a part of they are the public identity rather than themselves. And they really need somebody to process that with that's not on camera and doesn't really want anything from them. So that's you become that confidant for them. And then the third is decision-making complexity and velocity. We all know that the world is changing faster now than we could possibly imagine. And the complexity and velocity and speed of change and speed of decisions. You know that Harvard University is estimating now that we are making 35,000 decisions every day. 4,500 of those are human interactions, and we are making more than 2,000 decisions every day only about food. So it's like, it's a lot, you know, and then the weight of the decisions that they're making are so huge. Like I said, the consequences can be massive. So if they reach decision fatigue at 2:30 or 3 in the afternoon, then they miss out on 3 hours or 4 hours of high quality decision making. And then their organization misses out on those benefits. And then their people miss out on those profits, you know? So that's third is decision making complexity and velocity. And the fourth is the perfection paradox. Our leaders in our organizations have to pretend to be perfect. Can you imagine that kind of stress? They're not allowed to make a mistake. If they make a mistake, they have to be able to blame it on something else or some other external thing because they're not allowed to make a big mistake, which is impossible. I mean, if you're in any industry, in KSA specifically, if you in any industry, if you're not running fast enough to make mistakes, you are not keeping up with the industry globally. That is it. Okay. So any leader that's not making mistakes either isn't running fast enough to keep up with the industry or they're hiding them really well. And that's not good for the organization because we don't get to learn from that opportunity, right? Or they might be perfect. No, wait, that's shirk. No, it can't be perfect. So they must be either hiding the mistakes or they're not running fast enough. Neither of those is Olympic level performance. Okay, so hence the coach. We become the safe space where they can process those mistakes with somebody and then help the organization to learn from them without losing face and without facing the honor and shame challenge that comes from that perfection paradox. So you'd see very rarely examples of high performers who just really kind of hit the wall and become publicly. Can you imagine the CEO of a major organization saying, "Oh, I've got a bit of a mental health challenge today. I'm not feeling confident about our strategy, and I think maybe we should question it." No, no CEO does that. And yet we have examples of the highest level athletes in the world doing exactly that. That's new. Okay. At the 2020 Olympic Games, when Simone Biles said, "Hey, I've got a mental health challenge and I'm thinking of I'm going to pull back from the games," that set the bar for everybody to say, "Oh, wow, these people, very high performers, they're human." And that's a really important trait to remember, right? All of these executives, all of these leaders that we coach, they are human beings. And yeah, they're going to have a bad day. They just don't have anybody to talk to about it. Yeah, they can't tell the board of directors or the executive committee that they're insecure, they've got imposter syndrome, and they can take it home to their spouse and they can tell their spouse, but their spouse doesn't want that kind of stress at the dinner table with the kids. And even if they do listen, they're not competent in their domain of composition. They don't know how to help. So who do they talk to? Well, they talk to you. That's one of the best things that you can provide for these leaders. So I'll give you a couple of things really quickly in the coach's toolkit at the end of each of our terrains, internal and external influences and positive and negative influences. So an internal negative influence is the critical voice. That's the voice that says you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, nobody likes you, this isn't going to work, you're going to let everybody down, right? But then the internal positive voice is self-efficacy. That's the one that says you can do it. You're good enough. You're smart enough. You've learned enough. You've surrounded yourself with the right people. External voices in the negative, that's the Gollum effect that I was talking about, the spiral down. And then the external voice in the positive, that is the Pygmalion effect, and that is your responsibility. So what happens is if you as the coach are really good at using the Pygmalion effect, self-efficacy comes from the critical voice. So the critical voice gets elevated into self-efficacy, and then they believe they can do something that they didn't believe they could do before. And maybe they believe they can do something that has never, ever been done, because that's the nature of a world record. Second tool I'm going to give you in this toolkit is these three things, which I work on religiously with my tier 1 clients, is mindfulness, which is a way of slowing down your brain's perception of time. Flow state, which is a way of speeding up your brain's perception of time. And then, of course, time and task mastery, making sure that they've got their calendar in order, making sure that their decisions are as automated and augmented as possible so that they're only spending their cognitive time and their cognitive energy on those things that are most mission critical. So you need to make sure that you have these kinds of things in your toolbox if you're going to be able to elevate your clients to their Olympic level. That's terrain number 1. And terrain number 2 is language barriers. This one's going to be a little bit faster, but I want to start with a question on Menti. I want you to plot where you think ICF certification sits on this grid. Vertical is the depth of coaching craft, and horizontal is the breadth of business fluency. Where does your certification sit? And I'm going to give you a couple minutes to do this. Let me stop sharing so that I can hand it over to you.
Yeah,
Abdulrahman.
sure. Yeah, definitely. Let's see the results.
Right. Let's see. Where is our certification on this grid?
Okay, I just want to make sure that everybody is able to get the link and to the Menti. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Are we seeing any plots?
I'm not sure. Is everybody able to get it? Yeah, there's no plot. There's no plot yet. Plot yet.
Perhaps this one isn't working. Should we move on?
Okay.
No, I don't. Yeah, okay, we can do this one. I'll skip it when we get to it. It's fine.
Okay. let me just make sure that this is working. This is working. Yeah, but maybe it's something wrong maybe with the link. But anyway, let me know, Coach, if you want to move on.
Yeah, let's move on. I don't want to delay. Please go ahead and answer that question, the second question, where you think ICF certification sits on the grid. Then we'll have the answers at the end. We can go back to it. All right.
Yeah.
So release question number 2 and let them do it. And then we can go back to it after. That's no problem. All right. I'm going to share again. Yeah. Good.
Yeah. Can you see my screen, Coach?
Now I'm sharing now. You should be able to see my screen now.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Perfect. All right. Now, let's start with a quote. This is from Ronnie Lott. Great coaches lie awake at night thinking about how to make you better. Most people don't spend a lot of time thinking about how they're going to make someone else better, but that is exactly what coaches do. So I want to tell you a little story from one of my tier 1 clients. This is Dennis versus Paul. And I know it's a little dramatic, right? But Paul was the CEO of a major multinational organization, 70-year-old company, 55,000 staff, and in like 30 different countries. And so Paul called me one day and he said, "Hey, I need help. My new chief digital officer, Dennis, needs coaching." So I said, "Okay." I went in, met with Paul, and I said, "Paul, what's going on?" He said, "Well, Dennis, my new CDO, has been on staff for 90 days, and this is his first role as CDO." And he came into my office and he was super excited because after 90 days, I said, I want to see your strategy. What's your plan?" And so Dennis showed Paul the plan, right? And it was 70 slides long. And Paul couldn't understand half of it because it's all digital language, you know? Paul didn't have the vocabulary for that. And so I said, "Okay, wait, stop. So you want me to help you with understanding Dennis's digital language?" And Paul said, no, wait, it gets worse. So then he said, "So I told Dennis, go away, take another week, and then come back with a more comprehensible strategy." So Dennis went away and came back with 120 slides. So, so then Paul just threw his hands up. He says, "I don't know what to do with this guy. He's obviously very talented, but I do not understand a thing that he's saying." And so what was happening was there was a language barrier. And so Paul, who hadn't spent his career in IT, had spent his career in finance. He's a finance guy. Dennis had spent his entire career in IT. He started out as a cybersecurity specialist a number of years ago, and then slowly climbed the ladder, and then eventually went to like IT manager, then server manager, and then he became deputy CDO, and then suddenly he became CDO, and he wants to add value to the executive committee. So what is he going to add value in? He's going to add value in the language that he knows the best, digital language, which Paul doesn't speak. He speaks finance. So what happens in the C-suite very often is we get very high level players who are all specialists, specialists in digital, specialists in finance, specialists in HR, specialists in marketing, specialists in sales, right? And all of these specialties earn you the right to sit on the C-suite. But as soon as you get there, your team is made up of people that do not speak your language. And that's a super big challenge because this is what we think the language barrier looks like. Human resources, logistics, MarTech, information technology. But because of the way that CXO roles have developed over the last few years, this is what it actually looks like. Now, how many of you understand all of these? These are HR terms, they are IT terms, they are finance terms, and they are marketing terms. So if you don't understand this vocabulary, you might not be able to help your Olympic level business executive. We need to have not a complete understanding of all of it, but we need to have more than an average understanding of the vocabulary that our athletes, our executive athletes, are using when they're trying to explain their problems to us, so that we're not always saying, "I'm sorry, what does this mean? What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?" Like, we're trying to understand where they're coming from, and we can't do that unless we have the vocabulary. So some of the problem that they have is the language barrier between each other. They definitely would not be served well if they had that same language barrier between themselves and their coach, and that's you. So we do need some ways of dealing with this. So what I did with Dennis and Paul is I took Dennis aside and I understood most of his digital language. I studied artificial intelligence at MIT, so I had the vocabulary for that and I understood what he was doing and it was amazing. But Paul didn't understand it. So I told Dennis, I said, I'm going to help you. We're going to translate all of your digital transformation into finance language. And so what we did was we translated all of his interventions, his transformations, into what we call delay cost. And I'm not going to show you the whole calculation here. I just want you to be aware that these sorts of tools exist for coaches at the highest level. This kind of tool really helps to translate marketing, HR, IT into finance language so that the CFO and the CEO, who usually speak finance pretty well, can get on board with it. It's a stakeholder mapping kind of tool. So when you translate things into delay cost, it's like saying, okay, so if we spend money today, then we're going to make money over a period of time, and then maybe the amount of money we make is going to go down over time. But if we spend it today, we're going to make money faster, and we're going to make more money than if we spend it in 3 months from now, which is the late entry that you see on that chart. So if we wait 3 months, there is an unrecoverable missed income cost, and that is what we call delay cost. So when Dennis went back to Paul and said, here's the digital transformation, and the delay cost on this particular intervention is 12,000 British pounds a day. That was a language that Paul understood. Immediately, he signed the vendor contract. They immediately got underway. That's it. It was a language problem. It wasn't a strategy issue. So all we needed to do was to translate IT into finance. Khalas, communication done. Everybody could speak Paul's language. And Dennis, I'll tell you what, Dennis, he was an amazing student, by the way, in all of this, but he learned new tips and tricks. He learned how to communicate in finance, not just to set a budget for an IT department or a transformation exercise, but to really communicate in finance language like NPV and delay cost. It was amazing to watch him develop. So that's the second terrain, is language barrier. I've got lots of tools for this, but I don't have time to introduce them all to you. I want to move on to terrain number 3. This is the almost inevitable shift to defense. If you can think of a manager, junior level manager, and then senior level manager, and then department director, and then deputy CFO, and then suddenly they're the CFO, right? As they climb that ladder, they're always facing upwards, and they're always in an aggressive kind of forward-facing career posture. But what happens when you are, let's say you start out in HR, you're a recruiter, then you're an HR team leader, then you're HR business partner, then you're a deputy CHRO, and then suddenly you become CHRO. Now, you're the highest level of HR competence in the organization for the very first time. There's nowhere else to go. You're at the top of the ladder. So if you're not playing offense anymore, now that you're at the top of the ladder, you're keenly aware, not only do you have nowhere else to go, but there's like 4 or 5 other people that are gunning for your job and just kind of waiting for you to not be there anymore. And so a good deal of leaders become insecure because they're not aware of this change, and they can take a defensive posture, which is one of the reasons why Bill Gates said, everyone needs a coach. This happened to one of my clients named Dan, exactly like this. He became CEO of a major company, about 50,000 employees. And he took over this job as a CEO of a company of 50,000 employees. And then he called me in as his coach. I'm like, okay, so what do you want? And he goes, well, I just want to keep my job. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, I want to be able to make sure that I've got good relationships with the executive committee and good relationships with the board. I'm like, why are you so afraid? Like, you've been working your whole life to get into this chair. And he goes, yeah, it's just like, it's a lot. There's a lot of responsibility, a lot of expectation. You have to pretend to be perfect. You can never make mistakes. And he says, I just want to make sure that I keep my job from, and there's other people in the organization that want my job and think that they should have got my job. And so I'm like, okay, let's hold it back a little bit. But it's that shift to defense that can really take a toll on the self image of a major leader. And they will never share that with the executive committee, the board of directors, the outside world. They're never going to say, hey, by the way, I'm feeling insecure. I've got a bit of imposter syndrome. So they need somebody who is a confident, competent confidant to share those struggles with. And that's you, that's your role. Very, very often, I'd say more than 90% of the time, within 3 months, I am my client's principal confidant. I know more about them than anyone else in their life. And that's not because they don't trust anyone else. It's because, well, there's some challenges when they share that authenticity on the board of directors or the executive committee. And like I said, they can bring it home to their spouse, but their spouse doesn't want that stress at the dinner table. And even if their spouse sits and listens, they don't have any tools to support them. So I become their principal confidant because I'm the only person in their life that's safe to talk to about things like this. And I can listen and I'm competent and I have real tools to add value with. So that happens at more than you. I'm sure that you've got great examples yourselves of leaders like this. And so the coach's toolkit is very, very basic on this one. Um, Emotional intelligence drills and emotion labeling, just labeling your emotion and taking ownership of it, I think is really important. Political stakeholder mapping, if you've not done it, I think Abdulrahman has done the stakeholder coaching certification with one of my good friends, Marshall Goldsmith. I highly recommend that. So just understanding how to map stakeholder views, what people need, the kinds of values they have, and understanding that everybody's kind of a little bit selfish. And so if you understand the selfish motives of the people that your client is interacting with, you can help them to communicate in a way that's meaningful to those stakeholders, and it will make them more influential in communications. Very, very basic. And then, of course, safe failure experiments. So they can try things out in a safe environment, like with you as a coach, without the fear of failure. They can practice saying things to you. They can practice behaving in certain ways with you. They can run role plays with you that might lead to failure outside, but it'll give them that kind of experiential confidence that when they leave their coaching session with you, they have a new set of tools that they can use to communicate. So those are the big things on the coach's toolkit for the defense, just to help them be a little bit more self-aware, emotionally self-aware, and emotionally self-controlled, and to give them that kind of safe space for them to air their insecurities and their imposter syndrome with you. We're going to move to the next question on Menti, and I want to see what you say when we rank these coach traits by impact on C-suite ROI. I firmly believe that every intervention in executive coaching should be free of cost to the organization. As an executive coach, my job is to improve the executive performance of whoever I'm coaching. If their executive performance goes up, that means that collaboration, trust, communication, decision-making quality goes up, input-seeking behavior goes up. That leads to better productivity and performance, which cascades down the organization, which leads to higher profits, which is a byproduct of all of those things. So whatever impact I have on my Olympic level executives and their ability to perform in their executive role should have a positive organizational impact as well. That should easily lead to a positive ROI. And so every intervention in which I am an executive coach is ROI plus. It is absolutely free of cost to the organization. Yes, they pay my fees, but they make a lot more money as a result. And I think that's the way it should be with executive coaching. So when we're looking at C-suite ROI, which is the return on coaching for executive performance, what traits are the most important? Is it ICF core competencies, 10 years of senior leadership experience, neuroscience-based tools, external objectivity, or proven decision-making toolkit? I'm seeing some great rankings here. Hang on. This is All right. This is a little, oh, there we go. Proven decision-making decision framework toolkit. That's great. 10 years of senior leadership, P&L ownership, ICF core competencies. Awesome. This is a great toolkit. External objectivity, so no internal politics. This is great. And then neuroscience-based tool is awesome. Yeah, so I see some great rankings here. There seems to be some flipping of the decision-making framework and the senior leadership P&L ownership. Having that kind of ownership, yes, I can tell you definitely helps. But like I said, there's a knowledge half-life on in-role and industrial experience. And so in the business world, for example, my last CEO role was 10 years ago. So even though I have some great memories of being in the CEO role, I'm not going to say that my experience is of all that much value to my coaching clients. What's more valuable to them is my coaching experience, because now I've met with hundreds of C-suite leaders. So I have not only my own experience to draw from, but I have the experience of hundreds of CXOs to draw from. And that becomes much more valuable over time as my own experience kind of degrades in value over time. But yeah, proven decision-making framework. We're going to get to that again in one of the future one of the future terrains. But I completely agree with you. This is great. How are we doing, Abdulrahman? Do we have any really good, solid questions that need to be answered now?
Awesome. So far, Coach Corey. Yeah, there is a question from Coach Abdulsattar. I mean, if I understand it, is that he believes that not everyone can coach an executive or C-suite unless they have the experience or they've been through the role before, so they have the experience being a C-suite or an executive before.
That's
Yeah.
I understand where that assumption would come from. Scientifically, it's not completely accurate. It's an assumption. And yes, the experience does help, but there's a number of Olympic athletic teams that are coached by coaches that have never competed in those disciplines. The interesting thing about the coach-athlete relationship, which is the same in the coach-business relationship, is I don't have to be able to play the game, the economic game, as well as my client can. In fact, I definitely can't. I cannot run the companies that my clients run. I cannot be the director general of the government organizations that my clients are leading. I can't. I cannot play the game that they're playing as well as they can. But I can coach them to perform better as players than they're playing now. So in my coaching, because of my knowledge base, my experience, my tools, my toolkits, because of everything that I've gained over the last number of years, I can coach them in leadership, management, organizational psychology, dynamics, strategy, all of those things I can bring to them, and they become better players. I don't have to play as well as them. I've never played as well as most of my clients, and I can never play the game as well as they do. But there is no Olympic coach that can play the game that their athlete plays better than they can.
Okay. Yeah.
Makes sense? And as a matter of fact, their job is to try to help the athlete to perform better than they have ever performed and could ever perform. That's the nature of a world record. So I understand the temptation to think that previous industrial or in-role experience is actually the trump card here. As it turns out, when you look at the science and the research behind what is the most effective forms of coaching, in-role experience and industrial experience degrade fairly quickly, whereas coaching experience and toolkits, gathering of toolkits, that tends to escalate very quickly. So yeah, I completely understand the question though. Go ahead.
Sure. So I'd like just to, because I think it's like we are almost like 10 minutes away from end of the session. So I'd like to jump into the Mentimeter again and look at this question. The one word, what's missing from the standard ICF coaching training? Would you like to run that, Coach Corey?
Yeah. You ready?
Let's do it. Let me just
put it up.
share the screen.
You have it, yeah?
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, so everyone, please just type in here what's the missing from the standard ICF coaching training if you want to coach a multinational corporate CEO. let's hear it from you after that interesting speech from Coach Corey, and interesting coach toolkits as well. I think you need to type in, right? I believe.
Yeah, you need to type in one word. One
Yeah.
word that's missing from standard ICF coaching training if you want to coach a multinational corporate CEO. So again, we're looking at corporate executives as the Olympic athletes of the business world, but with higher risk profiles for their performance. If they have a bad day, they don't just lose a medal. It's not just disappointing, you know? If they have a bad day, a lot of people can pay for it.
If the Mentimeter is not working, we can jump into the chat box, I believe, Coach, right?
Yeah, just put it in the chat. It's fine. We'll follow it there. In the
Yeah.
meantime, I don't want to waste people's time. So I'll pop back in to this question. Are you seeing it? What's missing from standard ICF coaching training if you want to coach a multinational corporate CEO? Go ahead and put in, I'm interested. Look, this is a curiosity question. I'm interested. I want to know, right? So I want your ideas. If you've been as a coach with a multinational corporate CEO like I have, then you'll have come up with some really cool ideas from your experience. Like, hey, these toolkits will be really useful. This would be really helpful. Things like stakeholder mapping and delay cost calculations. And I'm offering you my toolkit. So I want to see yours as well. Do we have some words in the group chat?
Yeah, I can see a couple of answers here.
Adaptability, global mindset, CEO
Yeah.
well-being, 100%. Knowing, yeah, extra mile achievement. This is really good.
Business
Dr.
acumen.
𝗙𝗰𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗶, I see that. 𝗦𝗙𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗶, I see that. 𝗦𝗃𝗃 from Kuwait, amazing. Welcome here. Yeah, well-being is absolutely. I'm also a certified wellness coach. Do I have to be? No. But does it help? Yes, 100%. It's a whole other set of tools that I can use when my clients are having a bad day or struggling, you know, it's a whole other set of tools I can use for them. So I apologize. I believed this was a 90-minute session. Are we ending in 3 minutes or are we going to just move to Q&A?
Yes. Yeah, we can move on to the Q&A as well. Yes.
Perfect. Then very quickly, I'm just going to run through. I had brought some coach creds. I'm going to skip that. I'm just going to go to this definition here. This one I want to share with you, and the next slide I want to share with you, and then we'll be done. Executive coaching is a co-creative process in which a coach and an executive elicit insights and actions from each other to optimize the mindset and skill set required for the executive to perform at their personal best in their executive role. And so with that definition in mind, I want to show you what I believe to be the map of coaching, which reaches all the way from non-advisory to advisory coaching, from complete silence, holding space, deep questioning through to modeled questioning, rhetorical questioning. It's a methodological coaching, tactical, mentoring coaching, strategic coaching, prescriptive coaching, directive coaching, which is not something that we do in ICF, all the way up to corrective coaching. And I have been, on a number of occasions, a corrective coach. And I'll tell you, it's rare and it's a very, very challenging experience. It's usually when a board of directors hires me to elicit behavior change in the CEO of an organization. They don't want to pay the attrition cost of the CEO because the attrition cost for a CEO is about 2 years of total cost of employment, which can be millions of dollars for a large organization. They want to try to save the CEO in their role. They just want to see some behavior change, some attitude change. And so they bring me on and they say, hey, can you work with our CEO for a year? And that's corrective coaching. So usually the CEO is like not happy to see me. And it's up to me to earn trust and transparency over the period of 6 months to 12 months to see if we can elicit some meaningful change and meaningful leadership out of that CEO. And very often I'm humbled by the amount of success that I've got with that kind of uphill challenge. But corrective coaching is a kind of coaching, and it is highly advisory. And it is not something that we teach at ICF, but it is from time to time very useful. So I wanted to share with you just the whole scope of coaching modalities so that you can craft your own playbook. I want you to identify your weakest terrain in coaching. What are the tools that you need to add to your toolkit? And I want you to set a 72-hour micro action. So what are you going to do in the next 3 days to make sure that you're moving in the direction of your development as a coach? If you want to coach at the highest level, then you have to be consistently developing yourself. So what are you doing to develop yourself? I want that. And then I want you to choose an accountability partner. Maybe you have a coach or somebody in your life that you can use to hold yourself accountable. And if you know the research on this, you know that coaching accountability achieves the likelihood of goal success by 63%. That's right. And if it works for your clients, it's going to work for you. So those are the
Awesome.
things I want you to start with. We're going to switch over to Q&A.
Yeah.
If you want to reach me after this, there's my QR code. I've written a few books that might be useful to you, like Spartan CEO. These are the definitions and drivers of high performance executives. Love at Work, which last year became Amazon Global #1 bestseller in management. And my most
Yeah.
recent book, which will be very useful for you, which is Chief Executive Coach. This is Amazon Global #1 book in management this year. I just released it at the end of February. I'm very humbled by this. And just so you know, it's on Amazon for $1. If you want the Kindle version right now, you can go to Amazon, you can buy it for $1 and download it. I don't need to make your money. I don't need money from you from this. I just want to give you the best of what I've learned in terms of executive coaching, and so that you can add that value to your clients' lives. All right, that's it.
Interesting.
I'm done
Let's
with content.
awesome. Awesome, Coach
I'm going to
Corrie.
release this, and now we're going to go to conversation.
Let's give the room for everyone here if they want to share a question to Coach Corrie. Feel free to put your question on the chat box. Yeah. Awesome.
What do we have? My 5 ICF sessions today. Wow, it's a marathon day for you. And this was by far the most valuable, organized, and well executed. Oh, thank you so much for saying so. Why, I'm here to improve the quality of your life for as long as you will let me. Okay.
Great.
Can we
Let
see
me
the
ask
books
the
again?
question from my end. I believe everybody can put their question in the chat box, but let me ask you this question. You've been
Sure.
working in this part of the world, in the Middle East. I
Yes.
believe you've done coaching sessions with executives and C-suite,
Yes.
Arabia, Dubai, and other cities in the region. What do you think the biggest challenge for us as a coaches when we start working with a C-suite, the biggest challenge with the current kind of cultures that will really prevent us really to get the highest results with these
Yep.
C-suites? One
The,
biggest challenge from your experience working in this area.
the biggest challenge is to know when to stop asking questions and start adding value. Remember that if you're in the C-suite, okay, the most expensive part of my coaching session isn't my fee. It's my client's time. The hour that they spend with me is not just a labor cost with millions of dollars as their remuneration, okay? It's massive, but there's a missed opportunity cost. They're not doing their job while they're with me. So I have to be able to add value. And if all I'm doing is asking provocative questions, that's not going to help them. They didn't get to those positions by being unsure of themselves or by not thinking through all of their options. They've already thought about it. They've asked themselves the deep questions. That's how they got there. Okay.
Yeah.
So they need you to be able to ask enough deep questioning, enough modeled questioning, so you can get a really good idea of their context. And then you need to be a wizard. You have to come with some toolkit to help them to apply something from business, from psychology, from strategy, from leadership, from management. You have to be able to bring something that will help them to perform better in their role. Okay. Because look, like I said, no Olympic athlete goes to the Olympics without a coach. And no Olympic coach can play the game as well as their athlete can, but every Olympic coach can coach the athlete to perform better in their game. And they don't do that by asking deep questions. They do that by asking deep questions until they understand the context. Okay, you're not running fast enough here. You're not transitioning fast enough here. You're not doing this. Okay, what can we do? And it's the coach's responsibility to know when that moment is, when they have to transition from deep questioning to adding real tactical value so that their player can play at their best. Because if we don't have that moment where we switch from asking questions to adding strategic value, then we rob our clients of their highest potential. We rob their organizations of their highest performance, and we rob their shareholders of their maximum profits. And that is completely unacceptable. That is not high performance coaching if we do that. So we need to have those toolkits, and we need to be bettering ourselves as
Brilliant.
coaches. You don't have to play the game as well as your client can, but you have to be able to coach as well as your client plays.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, we're already past the time, and let's just take one more question. There's a question from Mazen. What would be the first question you will ask the CEO?
The first question, yeah, always the same. Where would you like to begin? They always come in with some idea of what they want to talk about, the kinds of things they want to achieve, a goal, a distraction. So I never start with my own agenda. I always start with whatever's on their mind. Where would you like to begin?
Awesome, awesome. Really, thank you very much, Dr. Corrie. It was an amazing session, and I believe everybody here shared with me that it was very insightful and very valuable with a lot of insights. Myself, I'd love to know more about this toolkit and those stuff that you would add to your toolkit with a lot
Yeah,
of useful tools. The experience that you shared with us is amazing. Thank you very much for your time
it's
today.
my
It was an
pleasure.
amazing
It's my
session that
pleasure.
you delivered.
Thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate your time and your attention. Allah يفتح عليكم. بشوفكم قريب إن شاء الله.
Thank
Yes,
you so much.
It's my
thank you very
pleasure.
much.
يعطيك العافية.
شكرا
Thank
شكرا.
you very much.
الله يسلمك.
Okay, for all the great attendees here, thank you very much for your time, attendees. Just do us a favor. We'd like to hear from you, your feedback about the session. Just scan the QR code here, and you will jump into the survey. And I believe we'll see you in the coming next session. Interesting. So stay tuned with our amazing lineup of sessions in the ICF Saudi chapter during the International Coaching Week. Thank you very much for your time and efforts, and we'll see you soon.